I'm Matthew Pritchard from Evergreen Valley Home Improvement. Today, we're going to be showing you how to install a shelf such as this one, to be able to put anything from a projector such as this to maybe a small home stereo, or just something as simple as pictures or decorations. Let's get started. So what we're going to need for mounting our shelf is going to be a few supplies and some screws and anchors. And depending on the project you're doing, you may even attach your shelf brackets directly to the studs. So to get started, for your tools, you're going to need a level, possibly a torpedo level depending on what you're trying to accomplish, measuring tape, stud finder, pencil for marking your hole locations, some shelf brackets, and then some assorted screws. So here we have screws that came with the shelf brackets for installing the shelving to the bracket itself to the wall and then to the shelf. For this particular one, however, I won't be using these because I want to put something on the shelf that's actually going to be fairly heavy, so I don't want these pulling out of the wood. If you aren't going to be mounting anything heavy, you can get away with using drywall anchors such as these Duo Power anchors that actually go into the wall and they expand behind the drywall if you're not going to be hitting your studs. So a couple more supplies you're going to need is going to be Phillips head bit and a couple of different drill bits, which I'll get into later on the sizes and what we're going to be using them for. And lastly, you're going to need a drill. So here we're going to be starting to mount our shelf. You can see here that I've got this green laser set up, and I don't know if you can see these black cross marks that I have added to the wall already to mark where the studs are. But instead of using this laser, which I know most people may not have, we will go ahead and show you how to do this with a level and how I determined where these marks are. Let me go ahead and get Mr. Botrunkle out of the way to make this a little clearer. So, actually, let's go ahead and go to finding the studs first, just to sort of explain this a little more. This is the stud buddy I talked to you about earlier. So, you see where this mark is? Let's go up here. You see that it actually snapped to the screw or nail in the wall. Now, if you're trying to find the screw or nail, you just move it back and forth, nice and easy, until you actually feel it catch a screw or a nail. See? Like I said, there's two magnets in there, so that's how I knew that there was a nail or a screw or stud actually in this location right along here. There's another one right there. So once I figured that out, I went on ahead and came up here to where the height that I want my shelf to be. It's actually a little bit lower because it's where the screw is going for the mounting bracket. So I went ahead, marked pretty much perfectly vertical with this. Now, I mean, if you wanted to, you could always come in here with a torpedo level or, you know, any sort of level and actually go straight up and down to determine, oh yeah, that's level. Okay. So basically, I know that this isn't perfectly in line with where the level went, but I determined that by actually using that small drill bit I was talking about earlier to find the center of the studs. So whenever you actually figure out your line where you want your shelf to be installed level, you go ahead and you run this into the drywall, you know, get it to penetrate. Don't keep on running it after you've penetrated the drywall. You can go in and out and actually tell that that drill bit is hitting something solid. And you just go on ahead and you move it along that line drilling into the drywall just, ever so often to determine where this drill bit is going to go all the way through the drywall into an empty space, so you'll know, okay, well, that's the edge of my stud. And usually, since studs are only 1.5 inches apart, you measure in 3/4 of an inch, and that should get you dead center on the stud. Now, once you've found out where both studs are using that method, you can go in ahead and use a level to determine where exactly is going to be level to be able to drive in both your screws. Use the pencil we were talking about earlier to mark a line at both locations. And then wherever you've found the center of your stud, go ahead and use a level also to go ahead and mark that center mark with the pencil, which I've already done here. So once you've got those things figured out, one moment here. Here's our drywall screws, or they're just screws, but they are meant for going into the studs like I had told you earlier in the video. So we're going to go ahead and change out this drill bit with a Phillips head bit, like so. And since these brackets, one moment, bear with me. Since these brackets actually have what's called a keyhole mount right here, you can pre-install your screws in those locations, where the top is going to be. So I'm going ahead and drive in one screw into each location. Too far in because I can't slide it over that keyhole. So just back it out just a little bit. And there we go. That one is fixed in place. Now, yes, I know there is going to be a bottom screw needed. Whenever that you actually go to install that bottom screw, you're going to want to take a level, either your torpedo level or 36-inch level, put it right beside the bracket and position it up until you can see that the bubble in the vial is exactly in the center of your marks. And from there, you can go ahead and just make sure that this is actually seated down all the way. You can go ahead and drive in your bottom screw. There you go. Nice and tight. So you're just going to want to turn around and do the same thing. Sorry about that. Turn on the ceiling fan. You're going to want to go ahead and turn around and do the same thing with your other mounting bracket. Got right here. Sorry, I'm going to have my back to you for a second. I know this drill makes a whole lot of noise. It's because of the type of drill it is. It's called an impact drill, which most of you may or may not have. There are inexpensive versions of these that you can pick up, or you can use just the regular standard drill. Now, whenever you screw in this top screw that goes into the keyhole that I talked about earlier, you're going to want to make sure that it's screwed in just enough that it's actually somewhat snug whenever you try to put the keyhole, put the bracket on and press it down. You're going to want it to be a little snug with that screw. Because once you've got that in place, you're not going to be screwing that in anymore. That's going to be held in place by whenever you put in your screw in the bottom here. So, let me see. I kind of want to put it in just a little further, just a hair. Okay, I like that. So, like we said with the level before, make sure your bracket is nice and level, straight up and down. And then install your other screw. And there you go. It's been a few days actually since we got these shelf brackets up. I took a little bit of time to go ahead and custom create a shelf for this because, as I may have mentioned before, I'm actually using this shelf for a movie projector, which not everybody is going to be doing. But I just made this using some power tools, and I actually will have a link down below in the description to that video on how I created this. But like I had said before, you can always use these little wood screws, but they're not going to be as strong of a connection as what I've got here. You'll see here that it's just barely raised on the surface. These are actually called T-nuts. It has sort of little flange with spikes that grip into the wood and sort of a shaft that goes down in here that's actually threaded. And that's going to be just for extra support for the shelf, since I'm going to be putting a 16-pound projector on there that I've got right here. So to go ahead and do that, I've got these, they're called machine screws. They're the exact same thread as these nuts that I've put in. So basically, whenever that I made this shelf, if you're going to be buying plain shelf material from the store, you're still going to have to do this part, where once you've got your brackets up, you're going to want to put your shelf on top of your brackets, nice and evenly spaced on both sides, and mark the bottom of your shelf where you're going to want to install your screws, and maybe even possibly pre-drill it with a small drill bit for your wood screws if that's the route you're going to go. Before I put in these machine screws, since this is going to be intended for my projector, and as you may have noticed there was a notch in the back side of this shelf, I'm going to go ahead and feed my wires, my power wire and my HDMI cable for my projector, up into that notch in the back of the shelf before screwing it in. Alright, now I can go ahead and add my screws. Alright, now that our shelf is installed and it's very sturdy, it's not coming off this wall. We'll go ahead and get our projector up here. Get it plugged in. And then we'll be ready to go. If you liked our video, please subscribe and like, and we'll be releasing more how-tos in the future. Thanks for watching.